Great to welcome to our Book Talk segment today. A real pleasure to have with us one of the preeminent practitioners of negotiation skills in the world. He is founder and principal of the Black Swan Group. He has been involved in over 150 worldwide kidnapping cases as a negotiator, and he's written a really fascinating book telling us how we can apply those principles that he uses to our lives, called Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It. We're joined by Chris Voss today on the telephone. Chris, good to talk with you. How are you?
Thanks, Doug. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I had a chance to read through the book over the weekend, and really fascinating, not just the techniques in the book, but really your life in general, what you've been through. It's quite a life you've led.
Thanks. Well, besides the book being useful, we try to make it entertaining too.
Yeah, it really is. As I read through it, I think I've done some of the techniques, maybe unconsciously, in my life. But a lot of these techniques, now you use them obviously in life and death situations, but they can be applied to everyday life, can't they?
Yeah, and that's what the original premise was. Once I started realizing this stuff worked with kidnappers and terrorists, I thought, if this works in intense situations, let me see if it applies every day, and it really does.
How are you? I know you train at Quantico, right, and different places. Is that where you got your initial training in, or do you have kind of a natural interest in this anyway?
I got my initial training at Quantico, and then I just started picking it up everywhere from a suicide hotline to Harvard Law School. So, bits and pieces here and there.
So you tell kind of a funny story about, I guess you wanted to learn about it, and somebody told you go work the suicide hotline for a while, right? Is that what happened?
Yeah, they did. I was eminently unqualified to become a hostage negotiator originally. And I asked somebody what to do, and I did it.
Yeah, and when you do that, obviously on the telephone, it's not easy, but now you moved on to negotiating in hostage situations, which is really obviously life or death. But let's talk about how our listeners can apply these techniques to their own lives. And I thought it was kind of interesting. One of the chapters, everybody's kind of afraid of the word no, but you have a chapter in there that no is actually a good thing, right, to get at least right away.
There's two things to get that you'll be stunned at what you can do, and you actually got to do both of them. I mean, trigger an intentional no. Anything as small as, instead of when I call on the phone, and everybody that works for me does the same thing. We never say, "Hey, you got a few minutes to talk." We always say, "Is now a bad time?" Every single question like that. Instead of trying to get somebody to say yes, we'll trigger a no. And then what we try to do is we try to summarize it. We try to get people to say that's right, because as soon as somebody says that's right, they step across to our side. We don't try to get yes, we try to get that's right. And those two things, it was originally with a terrorist in the Philippines. We took a ransom demand from $10 million to zero in one conversation. And I've done the exact same thing, got a that's right, to get my son to play football differently, to one of my students was a pharmaceutical salesperson selling a hot new drug from her pharmaceutical company to a doctor. Bang. When she got him to say that's right, she made the sale.
Okay, getting some type of common ground. I guess that's the initial hope, right? Get them.
It's even stronger than common ground. I think it triggers common ground is not a bad thing, but this is even stronger than that, because if you're limited to common ground, I mean, you've really limited yourself. But when somebody says that's right to you, actually, it triggers an epiphany in the other side. To them, suddenly they feel like they've come to a realization of some universal truth. And if it was you, your counterpart, their counterpart that articulated that truth, speak the truth to me, then suddenly they're on your side.
Do you ever find, though, I mean, when these hostage situations, kidnapping, that kind of thing, I guess you got to temper your own emotions, obviously, but anger as well. You're talking to somebody that's trying to do harm, but you have to try and make, in a sense, friends with them. That's the toughest thing to do, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, stifling your own emotions in any negotiation is like the first thing you got to try to deal with. The hack to that, or the shortcut that we found out, by definition, if I really focus on where you're coming from, that just puts me in a different part of my brain. I kind of forget about being upset, and it's a real shortcut to not getting in your own way, if you will.
You also talk in the book, I thought it was kind of interesting, men and women negotiate differently, right? So you have to use different techniques if you're negotiating with the opposite sex?
Each one has strengths that they bring to the table. I think men are more naturally inclined to say no, to turn and walk away. Mm-hmm. And women are more naturally inclined to find out and figure out where the other side's coming from. Now, if you can put those two things together, you have got a superstar.
What's I guess the biggest mistake people make, particularly I guess in the job environment? That's where probably most people do most of their negotiation, right? With first getting a job, and then you hope you get a raise or a promotion. What's the biggest mistake you think people make?
Not finding out. They take themselves hostage in one way or another. They don't find out, or they don't let it be silent for a little bit. Go be quiet for just a moment and find out what's going to happen. I mean, some people are horrified. I once asked a female attorney who was very, very assertive, and she believed in being in control, and she had to be talking to be in control. And one time I said to her, "Did it ever occur to you to not talk?" And she went dead silent. She said, to her credit, she said no. But it stopped her in her tracks, and it made her realize that maybe if I can go silent for just a minute, instead of bad things that I'm afraid of happening, maybe some good things will happen.
I heard an interview once with, remember Larry Hagman, who played, of course, J.R. Ewing and I Dream of Jeannie, and he went in to ask for more money on one of the shows, and he was told, just sit there and don't say anything, and the more he was silent, the more money he wound up getting. So I guess it works.
Give the other side a chance, right?
Yeah.
Give them a chance.
It's hard to do, though, because you feel the pressure there sometimes from to say something, but you just be quiet. That's a good tip.
Yeah, for some of us it's very hard.
What other areas, obviously other than the job situation, I guess you negotiate in your own family, right? Husbands, wives, parents and kids. A lot of negotiation goes on there, too, so you can use these techniques in that environment, right?
I got to tell you, I got examples in the book of the same technique working with a kidnapper and a spouse. So it's amazing the commonality of human nature.
Well, it's a great book, very interesting to read, like you said, entertaining, but very helpful as well. And you have your group called the Black Swan Group, which help people negotiate in all sorts of situations, right?
Yeah, we advise people through. I mean, I've talked to people working out deals in Hollywood. I've talked to hostile takeovers. I've talked to government negotiations. It really applies across the board.
Name of the book called Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It. We've been talking with Chris Voss today. And Chris, give out a website if you would. Give people more information on you and the book.
Sure, absolutely. BlackSwanLTD.com. BlackSwanLTD.com.
Great. Chris, pleasure talking to you. Hopefully we can do it again. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks for having me on.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles Media.